because I want to go over some camp battles for Titan fans, especially if they're going to head down to training camp. What should they zero in on? So it looks like you mentioned Jefferson, of course, and I know Jefferson's one of those guys that, good run blocker, good professional, all that kind of stuff. But is there a chance that either one of those rookies by the end of the year, as far as playing time, could end up with the third most snaps, beating out Jefferson? I'm assuming Lockett will probably be number 2. Ridley, obviously, 1. But what do you think because I really like Eumenor. I like him a lot. I think he's got some great talent. I think he could be a really good pro. So, what do you think about that spot?
Well, that's where I'm going there. And I would say this. We might see a situation where Van Jefferson actually gets more snaps than Tyler Lockett. Okay. And we could see Calvin Ridley a little more in the slot, which would help him as he ages to make sure he's getting off press coverage and they could use him in motion, utilize his speed. Tyler Lockett is a guy who they signed right before the draft and wanted to make sure that they had a veteran wide receiver in there. But I think Tyler Lockett is a guy who we could look at and be like, oh, it's Tyler Lockett. But he really started to slow down last year, and I think he could end up being in a wide receiver 4 or wide receiver 5 role for the Titans when it comes to snaps by the end of the year. And I agree. It's Alec Iomanor. He is the guy who I'm looking at. I think he can make a major impact because he has a skill set that the Titans don't have a lot of. He's 6'2", 215 pounds, but he runs smooth routes. He's a real smooth mover. He doesn't look overly clunky or big or anything like that, but he also is incredible in contested catch situations. I did a film breakdown on my film channel, Tic Tac Titans on YouTube, where I looked at Iomanor's one-on-one matchup with Travis Hunter from their junior year, the year before last. And he went absolutely nuts on Travis Hunter. Randy Moss catches all over him, catching the ball, breaking tackles, yards after catch. He looks like a guy who, if I looked at any of the young wide receivers on this team and I'm like, okay, this guy could have an explosion this year and turn into a guy who it's like, oh, this is one of the better young wide receivers in the league, maybe like a Nico Collins style. I'm not saying their games are exactly the same, although somewhat similar, but he could have that style of rise. If there's one guy on the team who could break it open for the Titans, it is Iomanor. And because he is a big physical X receiver, which Van Jefferson can play that, but you don't really want him there all the time. Calvin Ridley is not that at all. You want him in the Z or the slot. Lockett is certainly not a big physical X receiver. Chim Dike, the 4th-round draft pick out of Florida, is more of a slot speed guy. And Xavier Restrepo, who most people know, is more of like your Wes Welker, Danny Amendola kind of quick slot guy. So none of those guys other than Iomanor is a pure X receiver. So I think he could ascend not only because of his talent level, but also because of his skill set and where it fits in the offense. And first day of training camp, he's got 3 catches, making people make tweets with eyeball emojis. But he is, he has been impressive early on. No pads yet. So but you would think that would only help him because he is such a big physical threat.
Yeah, I picked him in my rookie dynasty draft, so I'm pretty happy about that so far. Okay, so what about, by the way, Restrepo, from what you've seen, do you agree with what he said about his 40 time, that you really shouldn't look at that I wasn't 100%, I'm not that slow, basically, because it did seem like out of, I don't know if character is the right word, but I mean, you watched him play college football for a couple of years, and it's like, this guy knows how to play college football. He should have been drafted. So what do you think about Restrepo? Because it's amazing that he's even in this position where he's a college free agent trying to make a team.
You know what? The way that I look at it is, even if that is his 40 time and it wasn't like an injury or an ankle or whatever, not everybody in football has to be a Blazer. Like, guys can win. Like, is Travis Kelce the fastest tight end on the field? Yeah. No, he's a good athlete, but he's not like a dude who's like a burner or anything. Some guys, you could just feel it. You could just, your instincts, you got that spidey sense about you. Was Tom Brady the greatest athlete? No, but watch him maneuver the pocket. Joe Burrow is not Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen, but he can maneuver the pocket, and because he just can feel it. He's just got it. Yep. When we talk, everybody acknowledges the it factor in life and business and what, some people just got it. And It may not be perfect on paper. It doesn't quite make all the sense in the world. Biggest, fastest, strongest, all that. It just works. And that's Xavier Restrepo. So is he going to be the next Amon-Ra St. Brown and turn it? No, I don't think that's going to be the case. But I absolutely think he can be a solid role player. And the Titans have gone through Nick Williams, Adam Humphries, Kyle Phillips for a few years. They've been looking for this style of pure slot passing down receiver for a while. And there's no reason that Xavier Restrepo, even if his 40 time is legit and he's slow. We say slow, he would beat me in a race.
Yeah, right?
But there's no reason that should preclude him from being able to have a successful NFL career and be a contributor, especially with the chemistry that he has with Cam Ward. And for the record, during mandatory minicamp and off-season programs, he was catching passes from all the quarterbacks and moving the chains in third down situations and stuff like that. So he's gonna get open. Some guys just got it, and X does.
Well, you hit it on the head, too, with his development with Ward. I mean, that matters. And especially when you're a college free agent trying to make a team and trying to impress, to have that edge, to have that relationship, that matters. Okay, tight end position. Is that, it's deeper now that it's been in a few years. Wiley's getting up there being a third-year guy. Gunnar Helm is a fourth-round draft pick. So is this now going to be coming into camp a real interesting competition, or is it, we know who the 1, we know who the 2, and we know who the 3 are?
Well, I have been saying that I think Gunnar Helm will be tight end 1 in terms of the most snaps at the position, but I also think, this year, I do. But I think that Chigakonkwo, who is going into his 4th season, he could have the best stats of the group. You know what I mean? Both those things being true
fantasy-wise
at the same time.
Yeah.
Okonkwo now, because you have Gunnar Helm, who can be more of a traditional wide tight end with his hand in the dirt next to the offensive lineman, that can free up Okonkwo to be more of that off the line of scrimmage tight end, that H-back style tight end, motion into the backfield in the fullback position, come off play action into the flat, dump it off, get down the field, go in motion out of the backfield, run a real wheel route down the sideline. He's got 4.39 speed, one of the fastest tight ends in the league. They can use him more as a chess piece weapon, and he doesn't have to be that tight end on the line of scrimmage doing normal tight end stuff, which at 6'2", 230 pounds, he looks even slimmer this year. He's just not good at those things. He's never developed into that kind of blocker. Now, what I will say is, earlier in the offseason, Titans GM Mike Borgonzi did say that the tight end position has evolved. It's more like running back, where you're tight end by committee, because there aren't a lot of 6'5" big tight ends who are good blockers, who also are good enough in the passing game. Like George Kittle's just aren't out there. That's why he's George Kittle. There's not a lot of them. And I think with that in mind, if Gunnar Helm is in his role as that tight end, you look at Cincinnati offenses, which Brian Callahan was a part of. They had Hayden Hurst and CJ Uzama, and now they're using Mike Gesicki. Like, they like to be in 3 wide receiver. They like to have 1 tight end that they have out there that can do a little bit of everything. I think the Titans will mix in a little more 2 tight end because of the Bill Callahan run game influence on the team. But at the end of the day, Brian Callahan, when he goes to sleep at night, his nightgown is 3 wide receivers. That's what he's most comfortable in, is 3 wide receiver. So I think with that Gunnar Helm skill set, him being 6'5", 250, better blocker, just a bigger body than Chigakonkwo, while also having good receiving skills coming out of Texas, going for nearly 900 yards last year, and great hands and contested ability. I just think his versatile skill set will fit better with what Brian Callahan wants to do on a snap-by-snap basis. Even if Chigakonkwo turns into the more explosive weapon and outproduces, I think Helm will be on the field most of the time when Okonkwo is as well, and the snaps will be very similar.
Do you foresee Pollard, Spears, they're going to share duties? And then the other question is regarding the running back room. Is there a legitimate competition there for number 3 job? And how many running backs do you think they'll end up keeping?
I think there is a legitimate competition for the number 3 job, but I ultimately think they end up keeping 4, and the reason for that is they keep bringing in new running backs. They have churned the 5th running back. Now they're bringing in a 6th running back for training camp. So it just seems like they really want to have multiple running backs. I think they're worried about Tony Pollard wearing down after the workload that he had last year. I think I think there will be a drop-off in play from Tony Pollard this year after that workload. I just don't think he is not meant to be a bell cow back.
No.
Like, he's not replacing Derrick Henry. He can be the featured back in a committee approach. That is understandable. But after being that for the last couple of years, and last year truly being a bell cow for the Titans, not a featured back. He was a bell cow last year. I think that's going to break him down. So they got to have Tajay Spears to step up. But Tajay Spears doesn't even have an ACL in his knee, which hasn't really been a major problem for him, but he has had soft tissue injuries. He missed some games last year. He was not as productive last year as people thought he was going to be. So if he has another down year and Pollard starts to slip, now you don't truly have a back that you can count on. And it could be, I think it's a thing that Titans fans aren't looking at enough, is that next year, the Titans could have 2 brand new running backs by this time next year if Spears disappoints and Pollard breaks down, which I think are in the realm of possibility. It's not like you need 2 insane outcomes to happen for those things to happen. So I think the Titans running back room looks settled for right now. I think they need a lot more out of Tajay Spears, but Mullings, I think, is going to be more of a special teams guy. He's a bigger back. Maybe he can just help on the goal line, as you know. But I don't think he's going to be someone you want to give the ball to a ton. And Chestnut, for the life of me, I can't figure out how he's still on the team. It's just the devil that you know instead of the devil that you don't know, I guess. But Chestnut is not a super gifted runner, in my opinion, although he's a better runner than he is a special teams player. But it's like, I think they're going to end up keeping both of those guys if they can't find somebody else that they like, and they're going to try.
Yeah, and you might even see a running back that is on another team right now that ends up as a number 3 by week 1.
The Titans have the number 1 waiver claim, so they can have the number 1 choice of anyone who gets waived from now until the regular season starts.
Yeah, Mullings, I mean, I'm a Michigan fan, and I was actually surprised he got drafted. I know he was a 6th round, 7th round guy, but he's a one-dimensional guy, and he's not really offer much.
They're hoping he's a special teams demon.
There you go.
Honestly, that's what they're, as a converted linebacker who's a running back now, I think they're really hoping that he can be a special teamer.
Nice one. Before I move over to defense, is the offensive line on paper, if everybody's healthy, being equal, is every position set now?
Yes, 100%. I mean, Lloyd Cushenberry is going to start on PUP, and Corey Levin is going to be the starting center for right now until he comes back. But I think for the most part, when Cushenberry comes back, he's going to be the starter. So I don't think there are any battles outside of the depth positions. The starting 5 is pretty locked in.
Okay. And is there any battles at all as far as the offensive line is concerned? Because there's not a lot of can't miss definite guys there. So
yeah, I think it's all a big battle. I think the Titans brought in a ton of depth that had starting experience. Ali Udoh at tackle, Brandon Jamies at center, and Sam Mustipher at guard. All of those guys have double-digit games of starting experience. I think they combined for 60 or so starting games. So they're going to push some of the younger guys like Ojukwu and Duncan and Crenshaw Dixon at offensive tackle. But I think Blake Hance at guard is a guy who has some tackle experience, but also can be a big 6'5" guard if you need him. I think he's got a great chance to make it as the first interior offensive lineman backup. Okay. Jackson Slater is the draft pick, so I think he has a great chance to make it, which leaves one spot for a backup tackle, which means those 4 guys we just talked about fighting for one spot. I'm going to bet on Udoh just because I think they need someone they can count on who has that starting experience if they need, over younger guys who have been disappointments. But boy, they seem to still love Jalen Duncan, the 6th-round pick from 2023, and I'm not a big fan of his. So we'll see who gets that final O-line spot, but I think they keep 9.
Okay. You mentioned that the cornerback spot overall could be an issue, especially if Snead isn't healthy. And he's been one big issue since he's been on the team. We know that. But how does this entire secondary look when you're going to be watching these guys during camp, preseason games? What are we looking at? What are the more interesting fights for playing time?
Well, I think at the top, we're going to see Darrell Baker Jr. and then Gabe Judy Lawley, who is a second-year player who was an undrafted free agent. Darrell Baker was out with some shoulder stuff during times of the offseason program. He's good to go now and back and everything, but Gabe Jeudy-Lawley was the guy getting those first-team reps with Jarvis Brownlee Jr. and Roger McCreary. And outside of that, who else would really get him is the problem for the Titans. Marcus Harris was the 6th-round pick, but he's 5'11", 190-pound speed guy. He's more of a slot guy, in my opinion. Jamari Harris out of Iowa is a little bit bigger guy, so maybe he could take.
As
me too.
Yeah,
I think he has an opportunity to really crack in there with L'Jarius Sneed's absence because they're going to need another backup boundary corner. I think him and Gabe Jeudy-Lawley, Harris and Gabe Jeudy-Lawley will fight for that third outside corner guy. You have your 2 starters, the primary backup, and Darrell Baker, and then those 2 guys fighting for that next spot. And then Harris will probably be the 3rd slot guy. I think they'll have 5 or 6 cornerbacks, but they have 6 or 7 undrafted free agent type guys fighting there at the back end. So there's questions at the top because of L'Jarius Sneed, but there's questions at the bottom too. Roger McCreary and Jarvis Brownlee Jr. are good players. That's what we know. But everything outside of them is a major question mark. Safety, I'm much less concerned about, especially after Kevin Winston was declared a full go. I think he's a very talented player. Yep. Mike Brown is a good backup safety, in my opinion, as a 4th safety. But a lot of teams, and the Titans do this, use 3 safeties quite a bit. Dime packages, where one of your 3rd safety is a linebacker in the box on passing downs, and then your 2 primary safeties are back. Or maybe you want your number 1 safety being that box safety because that's a skill set they have, and your backup safety is just a pure center fielder. You know what I mean? Like, you can do it however you want it, but I think having Kevin Winston, who can play in the box early on, allow Amani Hooker to be that rangy safety over the back and use his ball skills, 4 interceptions last season, like that is a good sign for the Titans back end with the safety group that Winston is ready to go and can get a fresh start to training camp off the ACL.
Okay. In the front 7, you talked about edge rush issues. So if you had to guess, who's going to lead the team in sacks?
I hope that it's Jeffrey Simmons. We've been waiting for that double-digit sack Jeffrey Simmons experience, and it hasn't happened since his 2 all-pro seasons a couple of years ago. He's had 5 sacks the last 2 years, which is a disappointment for a guy who should be a top 5 interior defensive lineman in the NFL. That's simply not good enough, and he got a $100 million contract last offseason. We need to see a little bit more from Jeffrey Simmons this year, but I guess Arden Key, in my opinion, is a good 3rd edge rusher on a team. Like, he's a tertiary rusher, rotational guy. For him to be your starting number 1 edge just shows you how bad the Titans pass rush situation is. But Arden Key does have good pressure rates. Like, he does get good pressure on the quarterback when he gets rush opportunities. It's his letdowns against the run on early downs, inability to set the edge, and then his inability to turn that pressure sometimes into sacks. Like, he just doesn't capitalize on those enough. It was funny because Harold Landry led the Titans in sacks last year with 9 sacks. They cut him to save money, and he went to New England, but his pressure rates were some of the worst in the NFL. Like, he literally got lucky and got clean-up sacks. And then Arden Key had some great 60% pressure rate, but only had, 4 sacks, 4.5 sacks, and it's like, how does this happen? Like, why is this happening? So I guess I'd have to say Arden Key if I had to give you an answer, but I hope I'm wrong, and I hope it's Jeffrey Simmons.
Okay. What about inside at linebacker? Any of these guys? I know Cedric Gray with the injury and all that, but I liked Gray coming out of college last year. I thought he was an intriguing player. Is there a player or 2 there that the Titans can zero in on?
The number 1 player that we have to talk about right now is James Williams. He was a 7th-round pick out of Miami last year. He was a safety at Miami. He was a 5-star recruit coming out of high school. He's been converted to linebacker by the Titans. He played more than Cedric Gray last year because Gray had an injury during camp that kind of delayed his ability. And so far this year, Williams has stepped up, and now he is in that starting role next to Cody Barton. He's getting the first-team reps next to Cody Barton as an inside linebacker right now. And as a guy who was a converted safety, you hear that and you think, oh, he's better in pass coverage. He must, but not really. Williams is 6'4". He was 250 pounds as a safety. He was a guy who wasn't very good in coverage, which is why he got converted to linebacker, but he will hit you. He is big. He is physical. He's a downhill threat. So what does that sound like? Sounds like a linebacker. So he got converted to linebacker by the Titans, which was the plan for most NFL teams. And Williams knew that in the pre-draft process, that he would be a guy who would be converted to linebacker. But he has good instincts in coverage because he was a safety. He's used to seeing all the route coverage. But how to convert that instincts into where to be as a linebacker is something that he was working with last year. And maybe after an all season, now that he's comfortable at his position, if he could take those instincts in coverage as a linebacker and combine that with his downhill physicality that his just natural body composition gives him, he could be a really, really good player. He plays with violence and tenacity. I'm very excited about him. He's been my pick all season for the guy who will win the battle. And with Otis Reese being a guy who's 27 years old and maybe about to be phased out as a guy who, hasn't taken advantage of the opportunity, and with James Williams being ahead of Cedric Gray, I think that gives Williams a great advantage to win that job, but he's going to have to earn it in camp, but he's given the opportunity to do it.
Okay. And then finally, the defensive front. Of course, we know about Simmons. Sweat was a high draft pick last year. Yep. And then there's, of course, the depth, which, again, might be a big issue. I do like O'Malley and Bleedy. I think they're interesting prospects to keep an eye on. But talk about, I guess, Sweat and whether or not, what is his role come in the future as a high pick? Again, not with this regime, but still he's got talent. And then who's fighting for the big, contributor spots after the starters?
Well, I think Sweat needs to take a big jump up. He's another guy who, like we talked about with Arden Key, his pressure rates are pretty good. T'Vondre Sweat got pressure on quarterbacks when he pass rushed, but he's just not able to turn that into sacks. And that was a problem that he had on his college tape too. He whiffed on sacks. He got close and just couldn't, adjust and change direction at the last moment to get it done. Things like that. So he's got to take that step forward. But last year he did all he could as a run stuffer. Like he's a good physical run stuffer, and he's going to be that. But that's not going to be worth the number 38 pick in the draft if he can't also factor as a pass rusher. He needs to be closer to Vita Vea and Dexter Lawrence than he is, a standard DJ Reader type nose tackle. It's a run stuffer. You could find run stuffing nose tackles way later in the draft and undrafted free agency. To use a second round pick on a guy like that, they got to be more than just a run stuffer. So they need to see a big jump from him. But after Simmons and Sweat, I think Sebastian Joseph Day is a nice, solid veteran. He's a Jag. He's just another guy, but he's a solid roster guy. Glad they got him back for depth. He played well last year. But after that, it's ugly. Like Keandre Coburn is the backup nose tackle to Sweat. He was his teammate in college. They said he's a mentor. I call him a babysitter. He's here to babysit T'Vondre Sweat and make sure he's doing the right things. And then they've added so many undrafted free agents. You named a couple of them, and O'Malley and Bleedy. They just don't have good talent on the defensive line. And if you go look at free agency lists, who's available, there is no talent really on the interior defensive line right now. They brought back James Lynch, who was a guy who was with the team last year. That's probably because they knew these younger guys are just not getting it done. We just need to get someone in here. But that interior defensive line depth, they've had so many needs in the draft the last couple of years that they haven't been able to use their day 3 picks to stock that with better talent. So they've been really relying on undrafted free agents, and it just hasn't come to fruition with any of them. And they've had to go back to bad veterans, and they're in the same exact spot this year.
Okay. And by the way, special teams, there's been some changes here. So what do you think about this unit? You mentioned, of course, they have a new man in charge. That's good news. Yes. It looks like there's no competition, that they're set here at punter and kicker. It's just a matter of whether these guys will get it done.
Yeah, it's all about the returners. You know what I mean? That's the only thing that's up in the air, and you have the names, right? Chim DK, 4th-round pick out of Florida, a ton of speed. That's really a place where he can add value. Xavier Restrepo's got to find a way to be a backup at least. So once they get that in order, everything else, yes, is set. They bring in Joey Sly. It's funny, they had Nick Folk last year, who was an older kicker that had great accuracy and was losing his power. And they had a punter in Ryan Stonehouse who had great power but terrible touch and accuracy on his punts. And they flipped that entirely. Now they have a kicker with a bomb leg but shaky accuracy, and a punter with a weak leg who's gotten older in his mid-30s but with great accuracy and touch. They've just totally flipped their philosophies with both their kicking specialists. So it's funny how that works. Morgan Cox is the greatest long snapper of all time, maybe number 2 or 3. He was voted to the NFL All-Century team as the long snapper. He's been in the NFL for like 22 years now. First team All-Pro, a couple of years with the Ravens. He is from Tennessee, lives in Tennessee. They're going to let him long snap as long as he freaking wants to. So he's in his 40s. They're like, whatever, keep going. So yeah, they're pretty much set with everything on the special teams. We've talked about the young wide receivers, talked about, the linebacker competition, talked about what they could have on edge. That's a pretty comprehensive look at the team. It'll be interesting. Yeah. The Titans are one of these teams that could really take a step forward and be a fun team to watch, or really realize that, they got to make major changes again this offseason.